Welcome to the Football Frame of Mind podcast. I am your host, Cam. This is the host, Brandon. Welcome. This is another episode of the What If series, man. We love doing this series, man. We get to talk about all kinds of topics, man, that have alternate endings. You know what I'm saying? Every movie that you watch, when you have an alternate ending, that's a pretty good movie, man. Because maybe you didn't want the movie to end like that. So this is our version of that. You know what I'm saying? The What If series for football's greatest games, greatest situations, greatest missed calls, relocations that didn't work. You know what I'm saying? So we get into that here, man. But before we get started, man, how you doing?
Good, man. We get to pick the series back up. We get to change the tempo up a little bit and be able to talk some cool stuff.
Oh yeah, no doubt, no doubt, man. So you get started with yours on your what if scenario, man. You kick it off. Because I think yours is really interesting. I really want to hear what you think would happen in this scenario. So you started off.
So, guys, take it with a grain of salt. I didn't have the most time to research, but I mean, we lived through this time period, so a lot of these things are relatively familiar. And I mean, we can pretty much put the dots together and have a good idea of what would happen. So, this scenario is if a man who considers himself to be the biggest bust in NFL history said, if you're going to call me a bust, you better call me the biggest one. And I'm
Right.
talking about Jamarcus Russell. What if we turn the clock back and Jamarcus Russell doesn't have to be a bust? Let's say Jamarcus is able to put his talent and his potential on the field, cut back on a lot of the off the field issues, actually watch film, be able to utilize his God given talent that was given to him. Man, I think when you look at this, there's a lot of dominoes that could change and fall and things like that. If he shows promise and he plays this potential, obviously they didn't really have a whole lot of weapons at this time. This is post Randy Moss era, so they're really sitting on little to nothing. Guys like Justin Fargas, Zach Miller, and I think they drafted a couple guys after, but I'm thinking of like the year 2007. So this is kind of like prime heyday. I think this is right before they drafted Hayward Bay and some of those other guys too, which was another bust in itself. They shouldn't have drafted. Uh, Man, if he really starts to show out, I don't think Lane Kiffin. I don't think Lane Kiffin sticks around either way because I feel like if he starts to play well, and even though they still have struggles because they were bad on defense at that time too, I feel like they're going to put a different regime in there, probably put a more established head coach and not have a lot of these bad contracts they were giving out, man. They obviously that his contract was very unprecedented for the time, especially for a guy who had never seen the field, and that was pretty much all guaranteed money. It was ridiculous. He didn't have much weapons. He wasn't applying himself in the film room. There's a notorious story about coaches giving him a tape and saying, "Hey, go through the weekend, watch it, and let me know what you think." It was a blank tape. So when he comes back on Monday, they said, "Oh man, what you thought about the training tape?" He's like, "Oh man, yeah, I watched it." He's like, "What can you tell me about it?" Crickets. But man, if I'm just thinking of the things that happen, man, I think Oakland definitely takes a different approach. Obviously, it's been an up and down dumpster fire. I feel like just for the longest. No disrespect. I think the Raiders are awesome. I think the organization's awesome. It's just sometimes
Me
the
too.
leadership and guys you have in the wrong positions making those decisions. But I feel like if Jamarcus starts to show out and he really applies himself, I don't see Oakland going through that turbulent season that they went through for the longest. It felt like even after they released him, it just felt like they could not shake it until they got Derek Carr, of course. But I just mean, I still think they get rid of Lane Kiffin, but I think they make some changes in the management office. I think they get a more established coach, better coordinators. I think it's a more desirable place to play at that point because, I mean, man, the guy could throw 60 plus yards on his knees, dude. The guy's talent was there. He just needed to be developed as a passer, being able to read defenses better because he struggled with reading defenses. But he didn't have anybody really established that knew what they were doing that could really help him develop.
Yeah.
He's just slinging the ball around. And I mean, if you have a good head on your shoulders and you have good coaching with those assets and those intangibles, yeah, that's dangerous, man. Because if he knows how to read defenses and he's got weapons or even guys who are decent, he's going to take a top off a defense right off top. So, I mean, I don't think it translates into a Super Bowl, but man, I think the Raiders have a lot of success. I don't think he ends up staying there, but you never really know. The NFL, there's so many moving parts, there's so many things that could change. But I mean, overall, yeah, I see the Raiders being probably a perennial playoff team because I don't see them struggling to get free agents. I don't see them giving these bad contracts to guys. You're tying your salary caps, and you're tying the salary cap up to where you can't get guys, even if you wanted them, guys who probably would sign with you. Like I said, upgrading coaching. I mean, you got to think he put them in a lot of bad situations. The defenses, they were always on the field because they were either going 3 and out or he was always turning the ball over, man. If you go to check out his touchdown to interception ratio, it was nuts. He was a turnover machine.
Yeah.
So just imagine if you got a guy that can throw that far, developed as a passer, being able to read defenses and put the ball where it needs to go, because he could put the ball in a bucket down the field. You just need to develop him, put the pieces around him to do that. Imagine you get, like, let's just say, for instance, just an established coach. Any of those guys, even at that time, but you got like a guy like North Turner running an offense with Jamarcus Russell, and you get a good, decent quarterback coach and a couple of role-playing receivers. They don't even have to be big names at the time. That's a whole different story, dude. That offense could get rolling because I want to say what they drafted Jamarcus, and didn't they draft McFadden the year after? Correct, in 2008, I want to say they drafted McFadden.
Yep.
That's a game changer because now McFadden probably doesn't get hurt because you're not relying on him to carry the workload because of Jamarcus's struggles. Because obviously he's still a young quarterback. You're gonna run into roadblocks. But imagine you're fixing those issues. You're not having the off the field issues. He's playing better. Now you have a guy who is considered to be the best running back in that class, in my opinion. Dude, that changes everything.
It does.
Everything. You have an established run game, but now you have a guy who can drop the ball wherever he wants to put it. And your running back isn't having to carry the ball all those many times. Because this is in an era where running backs were like how he would say the bell cow. Like like if you're not a pass heavy team, you're running the ball all the time, especially if your quarterback struggling, which can lead to injuries and overworking and things of that nature. But I feel like you'd have him, you'd have McFadden, you'd probably have some other decent receivers at the time. You never know. Like that could change everything, especially on the defense. If they feel like, okay, the offense is on the rise, now you're bringing guys in on defense that can help complement them to where you don't have a Saint syndrome back in the day where you're dropping points, but your defense can't stop anybody. And there's a lot of dominoes that had to fall, but man, I really feel like the Raiders could have been in a much better place, and they might have been able to find a way to stay in Oakland. You never know. Because, I mean, all those years, I mean, think of how many years they struggled. Let's just say, since they won that Super Bowl, or they had that appearance or whatever, they didn't have many winning seasons after that.
No, not at all. No.
Turbulent. Man, they went through guys. They went through Jamarcus. They went through Kerry Collins. They went through Carson Palmer.
Yeah.
Dude, they went through, what is his name? Campbell. What is his name?
Jason Campbell.
Jason Campbell. They went through Terrell Pryor. They went through all kinds of prototype over the hill quarterbacks. And
Mike Glennon.
I just feel like Mike Glennon too. I feel like if you have a guy like Jamarcus that is showing out, you're not going to go through all those same things because the general manager and the ownership is going to take accountability. At least I would feel like the Raiders be like, oh man, we got lightning in a bottle. We need to capitalize on this while we can. Like I said, I don't think it would translate to a Super Bowl, but I think they would definitely have had success for at least 5 or so years. You really never know. It all depends on free agency, draft classes, stuff like that. But I mean, I feel like the coaching staff would have improved. I feel like definitely they would have put pieces around him, especially on defense, but even offense, man. I think that he had tangibles, man. I feel like it wasn't a very good situation for him to be in. his tangibles, his athletic ability, being able to throw the ball that far. That's why he got drafted #1 overall. Like he had his ceiling was high, but they didn't realize how far down his floor was. Like they had a lot more room for error in that situation. But overall, man, like I really wish he would have succeeded. Obviously, he kind of had a bad attitude, had some off the field issues with God knows who. What we already know. We're not going to get into those things, but I just feel like you put the right pieces around him, and he has a better head on his shoulders. That team's going to succeed. Maybe not Super Bowl succeed, but that team's going to succeed for sure.
All right, man. Nah, man, it's a crazy what if, man. So, all right. So when I look at Jamarcus Russell, I think of a guy that was put into a situation that he ultimately just wasn't going to win it. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Now we can look at his play, you can look at his off the field issues, you can look at his preparation, man. But it all stems from, Al Davis still being in charge, man.
Mm-hmm.
I love Al Davis, man, for what he did.
Just win, baby.
Yeah, just win, baby. I love what he did for everything Oakland, man. Everything Raiders, man. That was his team. That was everything. He was everything for the Raiders, man. And all the
Mm-hmm.
success they had in the 70s and 80s, you know what I'm saying? Even some in the 90s. They had some good teams in the 90s too. And in the early 2000s they had some success. It's all for him, you know what I'm saying? He did all of that. But if we get into the late 2000s and the 2010s before he ultimately passed, that was all him too, man. And it just you want to give props to him, but at some point you got to step away because if we
Mm-hmm.
look back in that draft, Jamarcus Russell was not the best prospect. You know what I'm saying? He wasn't. He wasn't the best quarterback prospect that year. If I'm not mistaken, it wasn't. I forgot who was in that draft, but I don't know if I don't think it was Brady Quinn. It might have been Brady Quinn. I don't know.
No, I think that might have been the same draft class. I might be wrong,
But
but I feel like they were in the same.
we we could definitely look that up real quick. But you know what I'm saying? I get into my breaking down of your point why you look it up. So you look at the situation that Jamarcus Russell was in, man. You have a quarterback that has a lot of tools, man. He did. He was not a slow quarterback. He was a big quarterback, and he had a nice arm on him, man. But when you hire Lane Kiffin and you don't really want Lane Kiffin, and you think like, okay, well, Lane Kiffin is young. Lane Kiffin is, you know what I'm saying, innovative. And he was. Lane Kiffin probably could have fixed him. But when Lane Kiffin is fighting with ownership every week, how can he focus on, developing his quarterback? Now, I think when they drafted him, Randy Moss was on the team, but they didn't really help him at all. That's all. They didn't even help with Randy Moss. And then we go
So
from coach to coach to coach to coach. Like they went through a lot of coaches at the time, man. I think they started with Lane and they went like 1-15. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, I think they took a Tom Cable or something after. I think.
Tom Cable. And then Hugh Jackson actually fixed the team because they went like 8-8 and or something like that. And then they fire him. So it's like you can't expect a quarterback to do that. You know what I'm saying? Like they really didn't make him feel wanted. You know what I'm saying? Because everybody besides Al Davis didn't want him. You know what I'm saying? Tom Cable really didn't want him. And if you listen to him talk about it, he's like, "Man, they didn't give me a chance. They didn't treat me like a quarterback. They didn't really want to help me get better. So I'm out there
They
playing.
want to help develop him.
Yeah, I'm out here just playing. And I never had the chance to do that. You know what I'm saying? And I agree with him, man. The time between them winning that going to that Super Bowl against the Bucks and the time after that is very dark for the Raiders, man. So
Mhm.
you have to realize that when you talk about Jamarcus Russell, yes, a lot of fault on him. You know what I'm saying? Because it's a
Yeah,
lot of
it's
stuff
more on
that
the organization.
yeah, it's a lot of stuff that he could have did better, but it's also a lot of stuff that the organization did to him, and they didn't really
I
put him
agree.
in position to do what he needed to do, man. But I do think, now fast forwarding to what you said about the alternate universe, because that's what happened in real life. So in the alternate universe, I say if you let Lane Kiffin develop him and really help him understand NFL defenses. Because believe it or not, Lane Kiffin is an architect when it comes to quarterback play. If
Mhm.
anybody can help him, it's Lane Kiffin, right? Now, don't get me wrong. Lane Kiffin might have been in over his head getting this
At
job
the time, yeah, I think
being
he
so
was.
young, right? But in an alternate universe, everything works out. He helps him get better. So yeah, they might suck that first year. But people forget before they got what's his name? I wanna say they had a chance to get Calvin Johnson too. I wanna say that.
Johnson was so this is, and I'm not going to try to interrupt you. So Johnson went second to Detroit. Jamarcus went first. We
Okay.
were talking about quarterbacks. This is the same draft class as guys like LaRon Landry, Adrian Peterson's at number 7,
Hmm.
Tegan Jr., Marshawn Lynch,
Hmm.
Darrell Revis.
Hmm.
The next quarterback to be taken off the board is Brady Quinn by Cleveland at 22.
Brady,
And
yeah.
the only other notable quarterbacks, you don't have another quarterback in the first round.
Mm,
The next quarterback is Kevin Cobb by the Eagles in the second round.
yep.
And then John Beck out of BYU. So it really wasn't a very strong quarterback class,
I
to
mean,
be
I
completely
mean,
honest. Drew Stanton, guys like that.
I mean, I I get that. I get that. I get that it wasn't a good class, right? But at the same time, if you get Lane Kiffin to help him, he will be a better quarterback. And then
No,
you
I agree.
and then you got chances to get later on, you end up getting in position to get a Darren McFadden. And then you get, I actually, since you brought up Darius Hayward Bay, I actually liked him more than Crabtree in a sense. Because
He was
Crabtree
fast, though.
Crabtree was Crabtree was a possession receiver and he could catch everything. But in the NFL, you needed somebody to take the top off of defense. You know what I'm saying? And when you look at Darius Hayward Bay ran a 4.2 and he could catch a little bit. So we can work with that. But you run a 4.2, and we can help you catch a little better with your route running and everything. We can win with that. With a quarterback with an arm like Jamarcus Russell had, you can make
Yeah.
that happen. And don't get me wrong, Crabtree was awesome, man. He
I
was
just
great.
think Crabtree probably would have been a better fit because he was more established as an actual like receiver. Like I think Hayward Bay could have been a good option, but I don't think he's your number one.
I mean, but if you look at the times, man, Al Davis was
And
was
I know he's speed.
he was
He was
always
always
bro. This is
speed.
the same owner that took a punter in the first round, bro.
Yeah, exactly.
If if
That's why
if
I'm saying
if it ain't unorthodox, it ain't Al Davis. But you know
like,
what? He did a whole lot of stuff that was unorthodox. He won a championship in Los Angeles when they told him that we not gonna help you move to Los Angeles. And he did. You know what I'm saying? So, he is unorthodox. And I think, man, you draft Darius Hayward Bay. It's not the popular pick, it's not sexy, but you could make it happen. You could make it work with that if you didn't have all that stuff going on in-house and on the field. You know what I'm saying? You could have worked that out, man. And then you draft LaRondo McClain a couple of years later after that, which he was probably the best linebacker in college. You know what I'm saying? I'm talking about every award that you could get for defense, he got it. You know what I'm saying? So he was actually one of the first linebackers in Saban's tenure at Bama to be a unanimous All American or something like that. So
Mhm.
he was one of the best. So you could get a captain on your defense, man. And they had some players back then, bro.
Mhm.
They weren't trash, like trash.
No, they just didn't have the coaching.
Yeah, yeah. And
They
that's
didn't. They couldn't
literally
put them in positions to win.
and that's my point about Jamarcus Russell. He just never had the stability of a young quarterback. And I don't care if you put Brady Quinn in there. I don't care if you put Kevin Cobb in there. I don't care who you put in
No,
there.
nobody's gonna succeed there.
Nobody's
Nobody's
gonna
gonna succeed.
nobody's gonna succeed in that, man, at all. And I think
Man,
he gets
like,
a really bad rap for how bad he was. I put him and Joey Harrington in the same category. If we
yeah, kind
talking
of, sort of.
if we talking about busts that really didn't have no control over how they really, really how their scenario turned out. You know what I'm saying? Because Jamarcus had a lot of talent. Now Joey Harrington obviously was probably a better quarterback than Jamarcus was coming into the NFL. But if you stick them into that scenario, doesn't matter how good you are. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
either the
You,
same.
you know what I'm saying? And I actually felt like, in my opinion, the Raiders drafted better than the Lions at that time. If I'm being honest with you, you know,
Yeah, I mean, I feel like they hit more on what Detroit did until Detroit hit on. Well, obviously Detroit hit on Calvin, and then they hit on Stafford a year or two later. So I mean,
yeah. But think about it. They picked
that's what
four
I'm
receivers in
saying.
a row. Charles
And they
Rodgers,
didn't hit on many. Yeah, Charles
Charles
Rogers
Rodgers,
not.
rest in peace, because he passed away.
Hmm.
Rest in peace. I want to say Mike Williams, who was a tight end. They was trying him at receiver. Roy
Hmm.
Williams, you kind of hit on
Hmm.
him, and then you hit on Calvin Johnson. So you get four receivers in a row that you trying to build around, and three of them really don't amount to anything. You know what I'm saying?
Besides Calvin.
So in a situation when I'm thinking about Oakland, you know what I'm saying? You draft Jamarcus Russell, you put him into that trash. Then you draft Darren McFadden, you put him into that trash. And then you
Hmm.
draft Darius Hayward Bay, you put him into that trash. And then you end up drafting LaRondo McClain and you put him into that trash. Now you got 4 first-round picks that you literally could have done something with that can't even get the right training to become better NFL players. We're talking on the
Hmm.
field and off. So now you just really just a dumpster fire, and they finally might be out of that a little bit with the move to Las Vegas. But I don't. But to your last point with them staying in Oakland, I don't think it mattered if he was good or not, because I think
You
they
don't think if he lived up to number one pick hype, you don't think they find a way?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so because them leaving Oakland was way deeper than Jamarcus Russell. Way
Yeah, I
deeper
know,
than
but
that.
I mean, they weren't winning though. I mean, that's another that played into it. I mean, for
I mean,
sure.
I mean, yeah, it has an effect on winning and leaving. But they had been in Oakland anyway. Then they left because they wanted to get a stadium. And then they came back because they couldn't get the stadium in Los Angeles. And then they were there and they still sharing with the Oakland A's. They've been doing that since before you and our time. So I think it was just time, and the city of Oakland, because they weren't winning, didn't want to invest, tax dollars in a new stadium. But Oakland had equity. You know what I'm saying? They had won Super Bowls in Oakland. You know what I'm saying? So
Hmm.
it wasn't like they were an expansion team and they weren't winning nothing and then they requested a new stadium. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Like how I spoke about the Rams. They had a we were an expansion team basically in St. Louis. So we won a Super Bowl, then went to another one. But after that, not many playoff runs, not many Pro Bowlers, not many nothing. You know what I'm saying? At all. So when you come to the table with the proposal, the city's not really behind you because we don't have a team to root for real. And then the taxpayers or people, whoever had to make this decision and fork up the money, they're not really going to invest in that because what do we get back in our investment? But for Oakland, there really shouldn't have been a question. They had 3, 4 Super Bowls or something like that within Oakland and LA. So
It was
what
the black
really,
hole, bro. It was their
you know what I'm
home, you know.
saying? The fan bases. I mean, shoot, they went to like the first or second Super Bowl ever. So they've been in the winning picture for a very long time. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, you can't get them a new stadium like because of what they did. You know what I'm saying? Like I just don't think that. That's why I say it wouldn't matter if Jamarcus Russell was good or not. I think they were leaving anyway because they needed a new stadium. They needed one. And I mean, if you look at we can go off topic for a minute before I do my what if. But if you look at the Oakland A's right now in
Yeah,
baseball,
they're trying to get them to move now because of the stadium.
exactly, exactly. Now keep in mind this is the same stadium that the Oakland A's won 3 championships in a row in. And that was in the 60s and 70s. Now
Yeah,
they
they were even
won.
relevant up until like the 90s and early 2000s. They were still relevant, but just
That's what I'm saying, man. So if they can't get a stadium and they've won more championships, and this is a team that's moved way more than Oakland did. Keep in mind, this is like I said, this is off topic a little bit, but it's my point that them Jamarcus Russell being good really didn't matter. Oakland, the A's were in Philadelphia before all of this. And then they moved to Kansas City, and then they moved to Oakland. So you telling me they can't get a new stadium? They brought relevancy to the city of Oakland anyway. So they can't get a
mm-hmm.
stadium. So if they can't get a stadium, you know Oakland can't get a stadium, the Raiders. So now we gotta leave. You know what I'm saying? We don't want to because we've been invested in Oakland for like 40, 50 years. We don't want to leave, but y'all forcing us to leave because y'all won't help us. You know what I'm saying? Y'all won't help us make this transition easy. So, like I said, they're gonna lose 2 teams. You know what I'm saying? They already lost the Warriors. They already lost the Raiders, and now they're gonna lose the A's too because they just don't want to act right, man. But like I said, I just don't think Jamarcus Russell winning would have helped it. I think he might still, if he got everything he needed and actually used all his tools that they would have helped him get, I think he could have had at least a 10-year career, and he might have
Yeah.
been able to see them into Las Vegas at some point. Maybe. You never know. You never know. Because he was a big guy, so injuries really weren't going to be an issue for him, probably body
And
wise.
he wasn't a scrambler. It's not like he was Cam Newton. Like he was a pocket
Yeah,
passer.
yeah, he was a pocket passer, so he was gonna be good, man. But I do think in an alternate universe, I do think that he could have been really good, man. But um, his doing and the organization just didn't allow him to do anything, bro. So,
Mm-hmm.
like I said, a little off topic, long winded, but that's what I really unpacked from what you were saying, man. Great what if scenario, man. So I like I said, I was thinking about doing that one anyway, because I was like, man, it's a whole lot to that scenario that people just throwing it out like it didn't happen. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like my man
Yep.
was really going through it. Like, yeah, he got
Dude,
a
he
whole
had
lot
no
of money.
protection either.
Yeah, man,
He was
like he
getting
got a
beat
whole
up.
lot of money. But dude, they ain't do nothing for him, man. Nothing. So, all right, but yeah, so great what if. But my what if scenario has to do with the AFL NFL merger. What would have happened if that didn't go down? Would we have 2 NFL leagues still? Who knows, man? So let me get into it, man. So, all right, history lesson with Cam. This is what I do, man. So, all right. So the NFL obviously was the big dog, man. So they had everybody, every player you can think of back then. They had the markets, they had the owners, they had everything. So, we get into like I want to say the 60s or something like that. And little guy by the name of Lamar Hunt says, I want to buy a team. NFL says, and we're not really looking for expansion teams right now. He's like, okay, well, can I own half a team, invest in the team? I want to own a team. I'm rich. Let me do it. Nah, they didn't want to let him do it, right? So Lamar Hunt has the brilliant idea of saying, I'm rich. Let me get a couple other rich guys and let's start our own league. And that's what they did. They formed the AFL, which was a actual really good competitor to the NFL at the time. So we look at this scope of what it is. We're talking 60s NFL, 60s pro football. Obviously, you got the Giants. I want to say with Y.A. Tittle back there. You got the Packers with Vince Lombardi. The Cowboys are kind of an upstart. Not really. They actually weren't the Cowboys. They were the Texans. So they were an upstart, man. You had I want to say Cleveland was around at the time. So, Baltimore Colts with Johnny Unitas, they were there at the time. So then the coach of them, like I said, history lesson with Cam, was actually Don Shula. Think about that. Don Shula was young at that time. So you got to think about that at the time. So they had some really good market and some really good money and everything. It was going. But Lamar Hunt and his gang of rich people decided to start a whole football league, man. And it was competitive with the NFL, man. I mean, from a marketing standpoint, they put teams in like I want to say California, where the NFL really wasn't. I mean, they put teams in New York with the Jets that was competing with the Giants. So I mean, you had so many different avenues for them to succeed, and it worked. It worked, man. No matter what the NFL tried to do, tried to squash them in the media, which wasn't social media at the time. We talking newspapers, we talking radio. They tried to stop them and squash them all over the place, but it didn't happen. And Lamar Hunt made it, known like, yo, we're not gonna back down from nothing at all. And there was there was a dark horse in the AFL, and that was Al Davis. We just talked about it. Al Davis was the Darth Vader to this whole scenario. If he had his way, the merger wouldn't have happened. Let's just say that. He did not want to do it. He was against it. He was like, we are not taking no prisoners. We are doing this our way. And, for a minute, it was going like that. Because when you think about the landscape, the NFL had a draft, right? The AFL had a draft. But Lamar Hunt had a lot of financial equity between him and between the other ownerships that he had divvied out his teams to. So they could pay for higher salaries than the NFL did. So when it came time for people like your boy Billy Cannon, Heisman, LSU, to come into his pro days, he had offers from the NFL. He had offers from the AFL. AFL, obviously, more money. Let's have some fun, right? But there was one person that really kind of set everything off for them, which made it like, okay, we might have to do this merger. And that was Joe Namath. Joe Namath was the biggest name. He was the biggest face in college football, national championship from Alabama. Obviously, he's that guy, that dude. And he had deals with the NFL. I don't know. I can't remember what team he actually got drafted for within that umbrella, but he commanded a salary that was higher than anything. We talking 400,000, which might not seem like a lot of money today, but man,
Hell, a lot. Like,
400,000 was good back then, bruh. So that kind of opened the door like, whoa, okay, we got to do something with this league because they stealing a lot of the top talent away from the NFL, which is bringing the product down. So you look at that in the history lesson leading up to the merger, which was completed in 1970, right? So before that, they already had talks going before the merger was complete in 70, which led you into the first four Super Bowls. So, obviously the first Super Bowls were let's, see what league is better. And, what I'm saying, we already talking about mergers, but we can still make money right there, right? But like I said, the merger's complete in the 70s, and then the AFL gets their first Super Bowl, which was the Jets, Super Bowl three. So you look at that, and it actually got Super Bowl four, I believe, because the Chiefs won Super Bowl four. So they split the two Super Bowls after that. So but let's look into the alternate universe. Let's say this merger doesn't happen, man. Let's say they start this league and everything's good. So let's put this into context, people, that there's a lot of money being thrown around in this football league, right? And the NFL was being like the NFL is today, squashing any chance for anybody to come into the market, right? But in the 60s, that wasn't possible because the
mm-hmm.
AFL was actually really good in terms of being stable financially because they had financial equity, Lamar Hunt and his gang of rich dudes, and the rich people was able to put money into the league, which made it even more afloat. You know what I'm saying? So even if a team was struggling financially, they would just pump money into the team, which keep them afloat in the league. But there was one thing that I think would have kept them going. It was the TV deal with NBC at the time.
Mm-hmm.
That is what really not only separated everything, but I think if they didn't want to do no merger and the merger broke down, I think they would have been good because not only, like I mentioned, they put teams in different places that the NFL wasn't in, and they was competing in the areas that they were, a la New York, right? So when you think about that grand scheme of things, you have money, you got people that want to spend money, and you got competition in the big markets. One,
Mm-hmm.
the West, which is the NFL's not in at the time. Then you got New York, which you got the Jets in there, and they got really good. They end up with Joe Namath. So that's how you know they were really good. And then you get a TV deal. Now the importance of having a TV deal is the fact that you can market your game to people all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
So
True.
yeah, the NFL has the TV deal as well, and they have a TV deal, but they're not supposed to have one. So when you think about that, whose product is actually better? Whose product is actually better when you think about it? Because they got the best players in college. We talk about all of them. They were snatching them all up. You know what I'm saying? And then we got a TV deal to broadcast all the best players that we just stole from the NFL.
All over the place too.
All over the place. So when you think about the merger itself, who really needed it? Who really needed it?
The NFL needed it because they liquidated them together to where the NFL could keep the name and licensing, but they could benefit from the teams, the markets, and the deals.
That's what I'm saying. The NFL really needed it in a sense because they was losing out in terms of viewership. Like even back
Viewership,
then, it might
money,
have not.
players.
Yeah, players, viewership. I mean, they going to the AFL because it's more money, it's more exciting. Like they was doing different rules that the NFL wasn't. We talking play
Mm-hmm.
clock. We talking annual drafts. We talking like, the people really got drafted, but they got it through carrier pigeon. You know what I'm saying? We talking we talking like, yo, you get something in the mail, say, oh, you've been drafted by the Green Bay Packers. But the AFL had an annual draft every year.
Mm-hmm.
So you could see Joe Namath get drafted by the Jets. You know what I'm saying? Which
Mm-hmm.
that's exciting. I would like to see Joe
Yep.
Namath get drafted. So when you think about it in an alternate universe, when if the merger doesn't happen, I think the AFL would be fine longer than anything. You know what I'm saying? Because, like I said, they would have the better players, they would have the TV deals and everything. And I think over time, the NFL might have had to merge with them, but not the NFL, not the way people say it now. Like,
But under the AFL's terms,
yeah, the AFL would have probably been the A side of this, and the NFL might have been the
mm-hmm.
B side of this if they didn't
Mm-hmm.
merge. You feel
And it
me?
would have made more sense, honestly, because at the time, you got to think, I mean, there weren't any talks about international football or any of these other things. So, I mean, even the name American Football League, like the AFL would have made more sense from a marketing standpoint, from money to media to TV deals.
Right.
It really made a lot of sense when you really sit down and you just put everything together. Like, man, like that might have actually blew up into something like completely different. You
Something
never know.
crazy. Like I said, man, look, it's the reason why Lamar Hunt got his own trophy, dog. There's a reason why his team is so good in Kansas City, man. You don't hear none of that stuff out of there because they don't play at all. Because they got old money there. Like they wouldn't have nothing without him. This league that we got right now would be nothing without Lamar Hunt. Because for
Oh,
real,
definitely. Because, yeah.
they really wasn't talking about the merger for real. It was the NFL was.
Because
They
they
the
knew
one.
they were getting backed into a corner. They knew
Yeah.
because if you think
Yeah.
about it, the AFL, if that doesn't happen, the AFL is going to probably continue to expand. They're
Yep.
going to keep garnering the attention of all these important players. The
Yep.
money's going to be there. The media is going to be there. If that happens, there's a chance that teams in the NFL are either going to like be like, hey, look, we want to move on and we want to join that. We want to be a part of that. Or the AFL might just blow up to the point where they just buy out the NFL and they take all the licensing, they take all the teams, they get the rights to everything.
Yep. Yep. So that's my what if scenario. But if I had to look at the whole scenario as a whole, I do think at the rate it was going, and since when I researched all of this, since it really was the NFL that was pushing the merger, I really think that the AFL was actually on its way to eclipsing what the NFL was at the time.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
I think that the merger just made a bigger conglomerate, but the AFL was way ahead of everything. Everything that
Because they had the money, man. They had the money, they had the assets, and
yeah,
it seems like even just from listening to you or reading that it's they wanted to be innovative. The NFL was innovative, but the NFL seemed like they were okay with being whatever they were. The AFL was like, we want to do our own thing. We want to be innovative. We want to be
yep.
different. We don't want to be like the NFL. And I wouldn't doubt it if they would have eclipsed them and became just like how we said, became something maybe even bigger. You never know, dude.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, man. Like I said, keep in mind, we talking about the 60s, dude. We talking about the 60s going into the
Mm-hmm.
70s. So
Yeah.
you getting players coming up, Terry Bradshaw, AFL team. We talking Pittsburgh. That's an AFL
Mm-hmm.
team. They was winning. So think about all the teams that was winning back then. That was AFL teams. I
The
mean,
Raiders,
into the 70s, the Raiders,
Gene Upshaw, all
Chiefs,
those guys. Yep.
the Raiders, the Chiefs, the Steelers. You know what I'm saying? Just feel like the NFL or NFC really wasn't coming around until after that, late
Late
70s.
70s, early 80s.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? You start getting the 49ers NFC team. You start getting the Dallas
Cowboys.
Cowboys NFC team. You know what I'm saying? So you started to get different teams from the NFC kind of picking up the pieces after all the AFL dominance, though. So that just lets you know that from that standpoint, that they was gonna take over because because even though at the beginning, like the beginning stages of the merger, which took place, right, before the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl was, the two leagues trying to see who was better, right? But secretly behind doors, that was the merger kind of happening. You know what I'm saying? So
Mm-hmm.
obviously the NFL won like the first two Super Bowls, right? Let's not discount what Vince Lombardi did, but
Yeah.
but bigger picture, they needed them more than they needed them. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? So I just think in an alternate
Yeah.
universe, I think the AFL just eats the NFL and then we get the big conglomerate. You know what I'm saying? But because the NFL was the A side,
But
simply
it looks
this,
different.
yeah, because the A side, with them being that, it just seemed like they were going to give them what they needed or give them whatever they wanted, but still put
Mm-hmm.
their spin on it. And because the NFL is the name,
Mm-hmm.
that's all we really know. We don't really look at the AFL and what they really did. You know what I'm saying? So you look into,
Mm-hmm.
that scenario, man, and you just like you appreciate all the guys that really kind of gave us what we got today. You know what I'm saying? The NFL and AFL and all of that. Like you appreciate it, man. So like I said, a couple rule changes that stood out to me in the merger was the fact that, they went and kept the league separate. I thought that was good. We don't need to have the leagues and then we
Intermingle.
right, and then we do the Super Bowl like we've been doing, you know what I'm saying? Which is good. Then I love the fact that they tried to move teams. I forgot what team it was that they wanted to move. But they wanted to move a couple teams, one to Memphis, and the AFL said, "Nah, we're not doing it." So, which is perfect because we end up getting what Tennessee Titans, which is Nashville. That's pretty close
Mm-hmm.
to Memphis. So you end up getting that later on in this thing. So like I said, man, it was a great thing to research because I didn't know that. And if Al Davis had got his way, we wouldn't have got it. Because Al Davis was not for it. And if I'm not mistaken, I looked it up. Al Davis, they didn't tell him. Like he's a founding father of the AFL, and they didn't tell him that they was merging.
Dude, you know he was hot, bro. You know he was
Hot,
hot.
hot
Woo! Sizzling, bro. You know he was pissed.
man. Look, because keep in mind, Al Davis was the commissioner of the AFL at the time. So
Mm-hmm.
because he was the commissioner of the AFL, he really felt slighted. But I mean, hey, you get to own the
But
Raiders.
but just think about it like this is how I look at it. The NFL had the blueprint, okay? They
Yep.
had the blueprint, they made it up. Cool. This is how I look at it. The AFL is like, okay, we acknowledge that. We're gonna take your blueprint, but we're gonna build on top of that, put our spin on it, and make it even better than what you could have even imagined. That it could have been the NFL is such a big marketing powerhouse, so it's hard to imagine it being any bigger. But like, there's just a piece of me that thinks, man, like they could have been even more innovative. Think how like the merger held back probably a lot of ideas that were on the table or we're in the process of trying to do.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen. Just say they suck them into that conglomerate and they get to say so. Dude, it could be way bigger, and we might not be talking about international ball. It might be like American made and this and that, but we're gonna do it our way. We might have more than 32 teams. You never know. Like you could have a team in every state. Like there's all kinds of possibilities, but I really think that they We're the innovators, like that don't really get the credit, and they built on what was presently there. You know.
Yeah, and I do and a futuristic thing, right? So the AFL becomes the A side of the merger, right? When they become the A side of the merger, say the USFL comes along.
Mm-hmm.
Now we might not be trying to squash this league as the NFL
Mm-mm.
did.
Expand.
We might be looking at expansion. Think about that. Because
Mm-hmm.
if I'm not mistaken, there were many of those USFL teams and markets that the NFL could have used. I
Mm-hmm. That's
look
what I
at
mean.
I look at the New Jersey Generals, the ones that ended up with Herschel Walker. They were a good team. That's a new market. Now you could probably move the New York Jets and the Giants to New York. They don't have to be in New Jersey because now you got the New Jersey Generals, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then I look at obviously the Oakland was in Oakland, so they had to move to
Mm-hmm.
LA. That probably
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't have happened if you let the USFL in, if the AFL was in there, because they had the LA Express. They ended up drafting
Mm-hmm.
Steve Young. So
Mm-hmm.
you could have that scenario, right?
That's what
Now,
I'm saying. Mm-hmm.
right now you could go into Canada. You can have those teams. Think about that. Those markets.
That's what I'm
Now,
saying, dude. It could have blown up into something
man,
like
I'm
I said,
telling you.
you're looking at a league that might have a team in all 50 states. You probably expanded into the Canadian Football League, but that's kind of a stretch because we don't know how. Because I feel like the Canadian Football League really wants to be their own thing.
Yeah, that's fine. That's no, I'm
But man,
yeah.
like, just think if that's on the table.
Yeah.
Think if that's crazy.
Yeah, because like you said, the AFL was already innovative. So they could already have been thinking about that. But they wanted to keep it here. So,
Mm-hmm.
now you just
Yeah.
yeah, so now you look at the whole thing, man, and I just think in an alternate scenario, the AFL just the merger happens, but
Mm-hmm.
not in the
Under
70s.
different circumstances, and it doesn't
Yeah,
play out the same way because
yeah,
the NFL gets sucked in. They're not the ones calling the shots because they came up with the idea. The AFL's like, we're gonna take. It's pretty much like swallowing your pride thing. The NFL swallows their pride, says, okay, we're gonna join what you have, but the NFL doesn't have say so, and all these different rule changes and moving teams here and expanding and do like
yep.
the possibilities are endless. And I'm pretty sure if we were to take our time and really play things out and think about it, like it would be insane.
Yeah, man. So like I said, I think the merger doesn't happen as I think it happens, but I think it happens way later. We're talking 80s.
Yeah, and much
I
different.
think yeah, I think the AFL could have just held off because the TV deal is what stood out to me. The fact that
Especially with NBC.
yeah, because the
You're
fact that
playing at everybody.
yeah, you know what I'm saying? So the fact that you were financially stable to the point where you had a TV deal, you could have got another TV deal. You could have got another one. And then, then we talking bigger, way bigger picture, way bigger audience. Maybe
Mm,
international. That's what we're talking about.
exactly.
So now
Exactly.
we talking big, way, way bigger picture. And now we don't have to do the merger until we want to do the merger. And then
Hmm. Until the NFL's gasping for air and the
right,
AFL just
and
buys them
then
out.
now we can just buy you because we don't have to merge. You can just acquire your all your assets just because. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So I just think um I think they were getting to that point, which is why the NFL wanted to talk to Lamar Hunt at that
Mhm.
particular time because he knew that, you know, if we can't get Joe Namath to play in our league, we in trouble because you got to
Mhm.
think there's more players coming right after that. You know what I'm saying? Way better ones. So if we can't get him, we in trouble. So let's just pick up the phone right now before that. So you gotta understand, you know what I'm saying, that particular thing. So like I said, in my what if scenario, the AFL eats the NFL and we got a whole
Mm-hmm.
different ball game. So but yeah, man, that's my what if scenario, man. So
That was dope.
yeah, man. I told you, man. I told you. It was something that was interesting to me, man. So I was like,
Mm-hmm.
you know what? Let's get into this scenario because it's interesting, man. I mean, I look at all the avenues, man. I'm telling you, once I start liking football, man, and I start playing, and then I got to the point where I'm like, man, let's figure out where these teams come from because I think we all play Madden, and we all move a team somewhere, and we want to just start our own franchise or whatever, man. But you know what I'm saying? That just made me more, what's the word, curious about where teams come from. How you do that? You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, so
Mm-hmm.
that's where it really came from, man. But like I said, uh, we can close our show right now, man. Uh, this is the Football Frame of Mind podcast, man. We hope you enjoyed this what if scenario, man. Obviously, you know what to do. Like and subscribe. But before we get up out of here, anything you gotta say, bro?
Yeah, man. Thank you guys for all the support. Uh, we're expanding to other platforms, and I'm gonna let him explain because he knows a bit more of it than I do. But we just want to thank you guys for all the support. Thank you for all the views, the likes, the few comments we have, man. We just appreciate if you just stay on the train, just keep riding, man. We do what ifs, we do pro content, we do college content. We're gonna start up another. It's gonna be like an open discussion content as well, kind of like how we do at the end of videos. It's gonna be its own playlist. We'll be able to talk about all kinds of really cool topics and get each other's perspective and maybe get you guys' perspective. But like you said, like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell notification, and just enjoy the ride. But I'm gonna let him explain kind of what I was talking about.
Yeah, so obviously I forgot to say that at the beginning. But if you check our community post, you would have seen the big announcement, man. We have moved to or partnered with the Off the Ball Network, man. A platform, you know, that gets a lot of different sports on there. So they have a different audience, man, for us to just talk to, man. Like I said, we wanted to grow our podcast, man, and be able to reach different people and talk about football, man. That's what we do here, man. But this gives us the opportunity to reach a greater audience and continue to grow, man. So big shout out to everybody over there at Off the Ball Network, man, for giving us the opportunity, man. We appreciate it, man. We just gonna keep on keeping on with the great content, like Brandon explained, we got everything you want. You want college, we got that. You want pro, we got that. What if we got that? We got the breakdown for the whole preseason. You know what I'm saying? Say you missed it. Say you want to call us out on our picks. All right, cool. We got that too. So we got everything, man. But like I said, big shout out to Off the Ball Network and big shout out to my dog Brandon over here. He do stuff, man, because he the topic dude. Just saying. But like I said, I'm Cam. That's Brandon. Football Frame on Podcast. We signing off.